Hi everybody, welcome to my workshop. Today we're going to do an unboxing of my new Lee Classic Turret Press. So without any further ado, let's get to it. So it's been a few years since I've reloaded, and I've always done it with a single stage press. So when I got back into it, I decided to give a progressive test a try. So I got the Lee Auto Breech Lock Pro. Very nice press. You can turn out a lot of ammunition in a short amount of time, but I discovered it doesn't quite match my style of reloading. I like to deprime and clean my cases first, and I prime it with a standalone unit, so it does away with 3 or 4 of the functions of the progressive press. And as you can see, I still got my trusty old Challenger here that I use for depriming. So anyway, let's take a look at this new turret press. I think this will match the way I operate a little better. Now let's get it open. For a progressive press, it's just going to wind up on the shelf gathering dust. I might want to add that another reason I wanted to get a different press was I'm going to be loading 308, and that press will not handle 308, and I don't want to do a single stage again. Alright, let's see what we got here. Start pulling out parts. Looks like the priming arms, bolt, and the piece to hold on the arm. And they've got this thing packed in there well, so you can't get it out. Well, there it is. That's a lot of weight right there. That's a heavy press. Some instructions. Tube to catch the spent primers, which I won't be using since I'm going to still continue to use my Challenger press for that. And a nice catalog. That looks like everything. Not a lot in the box, so it's mostly all put together. Now I plan on mounting this on my bench right next to the Challenger, probably about right there. So I'm going to go ahead and go off camera and get the mounting lugs in there, and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes and we'll get this thing bolted down. Alright, so I'm back. So I thought I'd show you what I did. I've got a top on this bench made out of 4x4s. So what I did was I took 3 of these little adapters that accept a 1/4 inch bolt, and they're made to screw into wood. Use the press as a guide and just put 3 of them in there. And I made sure to recess them down because I also do woodworking on this bench, and I use some expensive planes, and I would hate to run into one of those with one of my plane blades. So anyway, so here's the instructions. There's not very much to them. A little bit of blurb on reloading safety and how to reload. And then there's 1 page of assembly. So the next thing for us to do is to put the press on the bench and install the arm, but since that'll hang down below the bench, I'm going to go ahead and install the arm before I put it below the bench. I unpacked the parts bag, and what came in it was the bolt and the two pieces of the clamp that grab the arm onto the press, and two priming arms, which, interestingly enough, these priming arms are the same exact ones that my Challenger press uses, so I guess I got spares. But I won't even be using these, as, like I said, I use the auto bench prime to prime my cases. Anyway, what we got to do, this slides in here, and the arm goes into the hole. Now there's a bend on here. They said put it however is most comfortable, and of course they emphasize make sure it goes all the way through so it's grabbed, and simply put the bolt through. It threads into the cylinder that the arm slides through, and there's some notches cut into the faces of these two barrels so that it'll stay solid. That looks like it ought to be about wrong. Put that on backwards. I got the press laying on its back, didn't even realize it. Let's try that one more time. That's why it didn't look right to me. Alright, I'm going to put the curve so that it's just pointing straight back. That looks like it should be about where I want it. Tighten it up. I don't think I have to get too rambunctious with that. And then we'll just bolt it down to the bench. I'm going to use these bolts just temporarily. I'm going to have to go to the hardware store and get something a little longer. These are the bolts that held down the progressive press, and the base on that was not as thick as this one, but it'll do for temporary, just to mount it up and take a look at it, see how everything works. I think this socket might work a little better. Make it a little bit faster. I know it looks like I've got these two presses pretty close to each other, but they're plenty far enough apart that they won't interfere. That way I don't take up too much of my bench. I always feel like I get a better feel for how tight everything is with a wrench rather than a socket. All right, it's mounted. And I'm going to have to adjust the arm a little bit. It sounds like it needs a little bit of lube. They do recommend oiling everything, and as you can hear, it sounds a little rough. All right, that looks about right. And it looks like it's indexing properly. This little arm here sticking down through has got this spiral on it, and that's what turns the turret. As it comes down, it goes through. This has got the twist in it to make it turn. There you go. So that's mounted. So let's go through a couple of features. Let me clean a little bit of this up. I'm going to go off camera for a bit, straighten up the bench, and then we'll go over the press a little bit. All right. So got everything straightened up. Went in and got some oil. I use CLP on my guns, and the instructions say use a light machine oil or gun oil. I figure if this is good enough for my expensive guns, it's good enough for this press. Now, the interesting thing is it does seem to have some oil on it. I'm assuming this is just packing oil that doesn't have a lot of lubrication to it, and that's why it sounds the way it does. So I'm going to wipe as much of this off as I can. And by the way, if you don't have one of these, I recommend this. This is a sewing machine oiling device, and you press this little button up on top and a plunger comes out and you just get very small amounts of oil. It's great for getting in and oiling your trigger, your sear, things like that without just making a mess out of the gun. Alright, so I'm just going to put a small amount and spread it out. They do say it doesn't take much. And it does say to oil all the friction points and leverage points, which would be the linkage down here as well. Unfortunately, I know you can't see this. I'm down below the bench. But all I'm doing is just dropping a little oil down between the linkages here so it gets down to the bearing surface. And according to what I read in the instructions, that should be about all it needs. It does feel a little better. It still sounds about the same, but it does feel less tight. And I'm sure it's going to break in with time. All right, so we've got it assembled. We got it working properly. And I think that's about all we're going to do for this video. I figure what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my method of reloading. I know there's a lot of people out there that have already done this, but mine I think is just a little bit different than most people, and I want to give you my take on it using my new press and the old standby. So next time around, we'll go through depriming, cleaning some cases. I use a wet method, and I'll show you what I do for that, and we'll just do a couple of sessions and get through and reload some 9mm. I've got quite a few cases already cleaned and primed and ready to go. And these are the ones I shot out this weekend that I deprimed some of them already. So we'll run these through the cleaner, and then we'll start assembling some bullets. So I'll see you next time. And thanks for watching. If you like it, please subscribe. You'll find that I've also got a series going for assembling a wooden sailing ship, a model sailing ship. I did a couple of episodes of that and then kind of put it aside for a while. I had a little bit of equipment problems, some health problems in the family, but now I'm back to it and ready to get both of these series going again. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.